campaign championing evidence-based prevention strategies. Dr. Funk has treated thousands of women and has seen firsthand what works in prevention, early detection, and treatment. Today, she'll show us exactly what it takes to get serious about addressing breast cancer. Welcome, Dr. Kristi Funk.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you, Stephanie. I think that's the first time I got woos. Thank you. That's awesome. So appreciative. All right, we do have to get serious about breast cancer because, guys, it's on the rise. In 2020, breast cancer surpassed lung to become the #1 malignant tumor on planet Earth. Since 2012, there's been a year after year increase in breast cancer incidence for all ages, but highest, 1.4% increase year after year in those under 50. So the numbers are higher than ever, the ages are lower than ever. What is going on? So when you look at the percent change in the United States versus Japan in breast cancer mortality between 1950 and now, you see that the US mortality, numbers are up, but mortality is down. Why? Earlier detection, better treatments. While in those same decades in Japan, the mortality skyrocketed 150%. What? Okay, so you know you don't get cancer like an exposure event to a cold or COVID, right? You might be diagnosed on a Tuesday, but that sinister little thing was dividing for hundreds of Tuesdays before you found out about it. So let's go backwards. What was starting in the 50s and 60s that could have induced this upward death spiral in Japan? Well, look at this. Prior to World War II, Japan was a no meat, no dairy culture, where you see across the flat line at the bottom, veggies, fish, and legumes hold steady across the 20th century, while the consumption of eggs, meat, and dairy increased 7, 10, and 20-fold respectively in just 45 years. Could that have something to do with the escalation in cancer death? Furthermore, it wasn't just the food. Starting specifically in the 70s, the growing economics and increased affluence in Japan and other areas of Asia sparked westernized changes, not just to the diet, but to their lifestyle. They started to chase our culture, and as a result, they caught our cancer. So let's talk about our culture for a second. Instead of laboring all day in the home, tending to children, growing veggies and preparing fresh meals, women around the world routinely have now entered the workforce in droves, leading stressful and sedentary lives that expand their waistlines. They delay childbearing to later years if they have kids at all. They're not breastfeeding. They're eating leftover pizza for lunch while sending off those emails waiting for an answer, and then they dash home, or if you live with me in LA, you bumper to bumper it annoyingly on the 405. Actually, I ride my bike to and from work, but everybody else, I ride past the cars that are bumpering it, and I'm like, sucker. Okay, no. Anyway, here you are, you get home just in time to put takeout on the table, pour a glass of wine, fall onto the couch, and watch your favorite Netflix binge. Sound familiar? The scenario that I just described, though, creates a bath, a cell's microenvironment where this little rubber ducky, i.e. you, float. There are fluids, cells, hormones, and growth factors that bathe, support, and fuel this duck to stay normal and healthy or to become cancer. It all depends on what's in the water. Here's the list of choices you make, wittingly or not, all day long that alters the water. Nutrition, exercise, body weight, alcohol and tobacco, environmental toxicities, emotional stress, fasting, sleep, and hormone therapies. The key to protecting yourself from breast cancer is to understand that every time you lift fork to mouth, drink or don't drink, move or don't move, sleep or don't sleep, forgive or hold grudges, you unleash biochemical weapons into circulation that either stoke or choke cancer, fuel or fight cancer. One by one, we're going to analyze right now what cancer loves to soak in and what we can do that's getting rid of all of the bubbles and the plush towels and the lavender salts that cancer requires to stay afloat. First up, estrogen. Estrogen feeds and fuels 80% of all breast cancer. I know this is going to get confusing, this whole estrogen thing, but I can walk you through it. So like any good carcinogenic bath worth its salt, see what I did there? It should be chock full of estrogen. All right, how do we accomplish that? Well, I bet somewhere I told you to avoid soy because it's packed with phytoestrogens, right? Okay, so this is funny, not funny. On last Friday, and this is not a made-up story, a new cancer consult comes in, and she's with this woman. She's like, you operated on me 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thanks for bringing your friend in, da-da-da-da. We go through my whole consult, and towards the end, I start talking about empowerment and how diet and lifestyle make changes. And so I start to say, you should consume soy. And both their eyes, like got huge, like bug-eyed. And I said, oh, yeah, so about me and that. Sorry, I used to tell everybody that you got to spit that miso out of your mouth. What are you thinking? Estrogen receptors aren't discriminating. They don't care if that estrogen came from soy or horse urine, which is Premarin, or from your own ovary. It's going to hit that receptor and it's going to send a signal to the cell to multiply and divide. And it turns out, oops, I was embarrassingly wrong. There are actually more, but there are two basic receptors for estrogen. Predominantly alpha, which is on the cancer cells, so is beta in lesser quantity. Alpha, when inhabited by estrogen, tells the cell to proliferate. But with 1,600% more affinity, the genistein and daidzein, like isoflavones in soy, shoop, over to beta. And then beta activated does some incredible anti-cancer things, including completely putting on the brakes for the alpha-induced action, including going out into your fat cells where you have aromatase, an enzyme that's turning adrenal gland steroids, testosterone, androstenedione, into estrogen, and it shuts aromatase down, so you have less estrogen. And that lady goes, you were the one who told me I haven't had soy in 15 years. And I was like, well, you can have a tofu steak tonight. So here's the truth. In nearly every single human study ever done looking at breast cancer and soy consumption, high consumers versus low or no consumers of soy, listen to this, they have less, between 25 and 60% less breast cancer incidence and once diagnosed recurrence and death. There's few studies that show no effect. Listen to this, no soy study in humans ever has shown an increase in breast cancer. So soy it up. What else can decrease estrogen the way soy does? Well, exercise. Bust a move. This meta-analysis shows a decrease of both total estradiol and free, independent of menopausal status, and is more noticeable for non-obese women and for high-intensity exercise. All right, so you really got to bust a move. But why non-obese? Because obese women have 130% higher estrogen levels than lean women. Why? The aromatase. So I just said there was an enzyme in your fat converting adrenal steroids into more estrogen. And in point of fact, overweight women do have more circulating estrogen when postmenopausal, proving it's coming from the aromatase conversion, not from their ovaries. Okay, so now their high levels of estrogen cannot be lowered enough by exercise to show as big of a drop as you see for lighter weight women. So losing weight is another way to lose breast cancer risk since you'll drop the estrogen levels even without the exercise. What else? Okay, let's go the other way. Alcohol elevates estrogen. This study shows an 18% increase among women who consumed more than 10 grams of alcohol per day. I mean, why bother? No, I'm kidding. But 10 grams, in case you don't know, is not even a drink. So 14 grams is 5 ounces of wine equals 12 ounces of beer equals 1.5 ounces of liquor. So less than that creates two mechanisms of action. Number one, alcohol activates aromatase. There's that estrogen-making enzyme again. And number two, it alters liver metabolism in a way that estrogens, they don't get packaged up, conjugated for excretion. So they end up hanging around longer. Alcohol does a lot more than that. That's not good for cancer, but this is the estrogen section. So finally, I know this will utterly shock you, but taking estrogen increases estrogen. After menopause, taking estrogen oral or transdermal increases estrogen by 3 to 10-fold over your baseline, putting you back where you were during the lower estrogen phases of your premenstrual days. Okay, let's go back to the math. Meet frenemy number 1, IGF-1. Insulin-like growth factor has one mission in life: make things grow, which is super useful because post-exercise muscles need repairing, and we turn over 50 billion cells a day that need replacing. Your brain cells need protecting, and thanks to IGF-1, all that happens. Once these tasks are complete, however, what if there's excess IGF-1 in circulation, screaming at cells to grow? Well, then the cells will grow into cancer, into metastases, into the brain, the lung, the bone. Whew. Someone better slow that IGF-1 down. Turns out you're that someone. Your brain tells your liver to produce IGF-1 predominantly in response to eating animal protein, meat, and also very much so in response to high-fat dairy. This study followed 6,300 adults over the age of 50 for 18 years. And in those ages to 50, between 50 and 65, they found that higher animal protein levels led to an astounding 430% increase in cancer, death, and 74 times the rate of type 2 diabetes. Investigators found that IGF-1 emerged as an important moderator of the association between protein consumption and mortality, since wherever the protein went, IGF-1 levels were sure to follow. Just like Mary and her lamb, which, as I like to point out, would actually happen if Mary ate her lamb. Notably, no such elevations in risk happen with proteins derived from plants, only animals. In fact, women with high circulating levels of IGF-1 have 38% more estrogen-driven cancers than those with low IGF-1. IGF-1 creates a microenvironment proven to be conducive to breast cancer causation and invasiveness. Next bubble. Angio blood vessel genesis birth, the birth of new blood flow. Any cancer that aspires to be bigger than the tip of a ballpoint pen, bigger than 2 millimeters. And please, what cancer doesn't have such high aspirations? It literally must create its own blood supply, which it does by secreting angiogenic blood vessel forming factors. So here's an example. In a lab, you can stimulate human blood vessels to grow simply by dripping angiogenic interleukin-6 on them. They start forming, as you can see in the left lower, these tubular-like structures. They're trying to make new capillaries to come feed the tumor and bring all of its nutrients so it can grow, and then eventually, exit strategies straight through those same blood vessels to the liver or lung. But, middle arrow, if you add plant flavones like apigen from celery or luteolin in green peppers, you can see that they help block this tube formation. The most important angiogenic compound is VEGF. We need it for tasks like tissue repair and brain angiogenesis, and such things are stimulated by this list: exercise, high altitude living, heat, like here in DC today. Oh my gosh, I was out for a run and I was like, why is nobody else out here running? It's just me. I know why. A sauna will do it too. Intermittent fasting, wound healing, and sleep. But chronic overproduction of VEGF can be harmful in the context of tumor growth. Think of it the same way we just thought about IGF. We need some of it. Think of estrogen this way. We need some of it. It's like really great fertilizer that makes all of your delicious veggies grow. But if you overdump a ton of IGF-1 and estrogen or IGF, boom, where'd all these weeds come from? Too much of a good thing. Not like Mae West said. She said, it's wonderful. It is cancer-causing. All right, so what makes you chronically overproduce VEGF? First of all, estrogen. Second of all, everything else, it's really just food, but specific foods: meat, dairy, alcohol, omega-6 fatty acids, and ultra-processed foods high in saturated fat, salt, sugar, and refined flour. And by the way, the battle, way bigger than IL-6 and VEGF. There are over 30 known endogenous, meaning you create it yourself, angiogenic factors, and an equal number of endogenous inhibitors of angiogenesis. So our bodies naturally have, again, this system of checks and balances, bringing blood flow where we need it. Whoa, 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 no new flow to you, bad cells. We're going to starve that. Okay, but here's the fun part. Yes, you can take a number of synthetic drugs that block angiogenesis, among other things that they do, like cause horrible side effects. But unless you have a cancer and something you're treating with said drugs, you, my friends, do not need drugs to take away cancer's blood supply. Just focus on these top contenders from fruit and veggies, and you will automatically release chemopreventive agents into your bloodstream that literally take away cancer's bloodstream. For example, the brassicas in broccoli, the curcumin in turmeric, the D3 in mushrooms, the ellagic acid in berries, the epigallocatechin 3 gallate in green tea. Did I impress you with how quickly I just said that? The naringenin in grapefruit, the genistein in soy, of course, resveratrol in red grapes, the retinoids in carrots, the selenium in Brazil nuts, and the silymarin. And people are like, what is that? It's an artichoke. It's an artichoke, people. You couldn't tell? All right, all you have to do is chew and swallow. And all these anti-angiogenic phytochemicals do all of the fighting for you. You don't even have to understand how. Now, again, what is pro-angiogenic? Far and away the winner is processed meat, okay? So our bacon sausage and chicken nuggets are elevating VEGF levels, as are the other things on that list I said, estrogen, dairy, alcohol, omega-6, and ultra-processed foods. They all spike VEGF, but the winner is processed meat, and the second up is red meat, beef, lamb, and pork. They contain, besides elevating VEGF, there are different pathways. It's kind of like different entrances, and then we all end up on the same highway that's called VEGF. So the processed meat just makes VEGF happen. The red meat takes different ways of ultimately culminating in more VEGF that has to do with heme iron, saturated fats, and N-nitroso compounds and what they do. And then finally, because you're probably wondering, what about fish? This is actually mildly anti-angiogenic because of those fish that then have high omega-3 fatty acids. But you and I, my friends, do not need the fish. We can get our omega-3s from chia, flaxseed, walnuts, and seaweed. Okay, next bubble. Insulin resistance. You know, cancers seem to understand that they're going to do better if you are insulin resistant, resisting what insulin has to say around here. So tumors literally secrete their own pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6 that interfere with insulin signaling in muscle, fat, and liver, contributing to this insulin resistance that then makes it thrive. So what are the mechanisms? I need you to really get this because even your doctor might not really understand the basic bottom line here with why people become insulin resistant. It is not an excess of sugar. It has to do with saturated fat. So if you look at that insulin receptor there, what happens is you eat a meal that has some glucose in it, has carbs in it, and then the glucose gets into the bloodstream, and your pancreas is like, oh, we got some sugar here. Let me spit out some insulin to tell your body, like, get busy, food's here, chow down. Oh, there's a little extra. Let's store it as glycogen in muscle and liver. So I'm going to hit, the insulin's going to hit that insulin receptor, which is going to send a signal next door on the same cell. Hey, glucose, open up your gate because we got the sugar here and you need to come into the muscle. All right, so here's what happens. When you have a diet with excessive saturated fat, eventually the fat's like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I've stored it all like everywhere. I'm just going to start like stuffing it into like my kids cleaning up their room. Like, where are all your socks? Oh, they're under the bed. They're in the closet. Oh, who would have thought to look there? So the saturated fat clogs the insulin receptor. Go back to the meal. Glucose in the bloodstream. Pancreas is like, okay, spits out some insulin. Same amount of glucose in the bloodstream. What's going on? Why isn't she listening? Puts out some more insulin. And the receptor's like, I can't hear you. I'm stuffed with fat. So the insulin's running around and the glucose is still there flying around in the bloodstream. And everybody is saying, see, she shouldn't have eaten so much fruit. All right, so you end up resisting the signal from insulin. But how does insulin resistance actually help cancer grow? Okay, so we have all that insulin running around, right? Again, yin and yang kind of stuff, balance. We really need insulin. Everybody knows that. Type 1 diabetics have to supplement with it their entire lives because their pancreas has, autoimmune disease and it doesn't pump out the insulin. Okay, we really, really need it. But what happens when there's too much of it? Insulin is so sinister. It literally has its own receptor on breast cancer cells that makes it proliferate. It directly stimulates that. It also snatches the IGF-1 binding protein, so the body snatcher that lowers IGF-1, it gets rid of it. So now you have all this IGF-1 running around, and we just talked about what could possibly be worse. Oh, insulin bumps up VEGF. So now you have all this angiogenesis. You also, we just said, have all this sugar running around. And do you know cancer's theme song? It goes like this: I want candy. Okay, that's because it loves sugar. It needs sugar. It's really bad at using other pathways. It's actually really bad at using the sugar pathway. So normal cells, they'll take a sugar molecule, glucose, and they'll make 36 ATP, little energy things, battery cells, right? 36 come from glucose in your normal cells. Cancer? 2. It needs so much sugar, but it's a really fast pathway to make those two. I'm describing the Warburg effect, and I don't have time, but it's amazing how clever cancer is because it needs lots of sugar because it can make energy super fast, but it's not a lot of energy. So it needs 10 times more the amount of a normal cell to do its thing. Hence why PET scans reveal where the cancer is. Sugar, excessive glucose, creates oxidative stress, genomic instability, and candy. Chronic inflammation. That also happens with insulin resistance. This is a really big bath bubble all on its own, so we'll just stick a pin in that in a minute. All right. Oh, that was fancy. I didn't even do that. All right. Adipokine imbalance. This has to do with what the fat cells can secrete all on their own. So they said they're in a place where aromatase lives and you can make extra estrogen. It's your main source of leptin as well. Leptin, coming from the fat cells, you may know it as the satiety hormone in your brain, but oh my gosh, there are literally leptin receptors in breast cancer cells and in the tumor microenvironment, i.e. the bath water. And when leptin hits that receptor, it ignites a cascade of crosstalking between different oncogenes, turning them on and shutting good ones off to suit its little cancer proliferating needs. You get TNF alpha, interleukin 6, there's a whole bath of activated macrophages and chronic inflammation, and it all comes from the adipokine imbalance. And finally, you do get aromatase activation in postmenopausal women, which of course increases the estrogen. All right, so what controllable risk factor checks off every single mechanism on this list? Obesity. Check, 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 check. But if you lose the weight, you lose the insulin resistance and you drop your cancer risk. Because when you lose visceral fat, you have less inflammation. You lose liver fat, there's better glucose regulation. Decrease free fatty acids and lipotoxicity, and all of a sudden, you have better signaling in the muscle. You increase adiponectin, which increases insulin sensitivity, and you decrease your fasting insulin. You're not eating and your insulin's still high. All those mechanisms are happening. When you have insulin sensitivity, it works as it should, and when you're not eating, there's not a bossy boss insulin running around when there's no glucose to start, managing. So you have less tumor cell proliferations. If you want to win against cancer, be a loser. Losers win. Okay. A prospective study followed over 33,000 women for over 15 years. 1,987 got breast cancer. Compared to those who steadily gained weight, simply maintaining got you gains, 34% less breast cancer. If you lost that weight as a postmenopausal woman, 52% less breast cancer. Premenopausal, 64% less. So the more weight you lose and the younger you are when you lose it, the less breast cancer you get. What else besides being overweight increases insulin resistance? Food. All right. So sugary drinks, white bread, white rice, bagels all elevate the blood sugar and the insulin spikes. High fructose foods, soda, energy drinks, which you think I probably had when I did not. Candy. I didn't eat that either. And alcohol all create lipotoxicity with liver fat. Ultra-processed, high-calorie foods, right? They all have that triple threat. They're refined flour, simple sugars, and saturated in trans fats, like pastry and donuts, and they increase visceral fat accumulation. Processed meats, your hot dog, sausage, bacon, the entire charcuterie board of salami and such, it's all bad. Inflammation, cytokines come flying out. And your low-fiber American diet. It messes with your gut microbiome and oh so much more. On the other hand, fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, like your high-fiber carbs, oats, beans, lentils, and quinoa, polyphenol-rich foods, berries, olive oil, green tea, your omega-3 fats, flaxseed, walnuts, and chia, your fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, and leafy greens, kale, spinach, arugula, all contribute to the reversal of insulin resistance. Did I just say reversal? Yeah. Beep, beep, beep. You can back that truck up. You might not be able to put toothpaste back in the tube. I've tried. But you can put functional insulin receptors back in your body on muscle and liver. This unknown physician here circled, Neil Barnard. He published this randomized controlled trial in 2006 showing that it is possible to reverse insulin resistance with a vegan diet within 22 weeks. I mean, insulin-dependent diabetics no longer taking insulin because they are no longer diabetic. Not everyone in this study, but everyone did drop their insulin requirements, and it was only 22 weeks. What else is going to drop your insulin resistance, i.e. increase your insulin sensitivity? A number of specific lifestyle strategies decrease insulin resistance. Fasting increases autophagy. You eat yourself in a very clever way. You get rid of damaged, dying, deranged, senescent cancer cells, not perfectly good like liver and brain cells. So you want autophagy through intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting. It improves metabolic flexibility, which means you switch very easily from sugar to fats and ketones. Guess who can't? I want candy. Okay? I had no idea that was going to be a theme song of this lecture. Even one night of poor sleep reduces insulin sensitivity the very next day. So optimize your sleep and increase insulin sensitivity. Cortisol, stress, it blocks insulin's effects at the cellular level. So you need to meditate, yoga, breathe, journal, and pray your way into decreased cortisol, which equals decreased glucose and decreased inflammation. But the heaviest hitter here by far, exercise. One session of resistance training, HIIT, a simple walk after dinner, improves insulin sensitivity for a full 24 to 48 hours. What could that do if you exercised on the regular? All right, well, it improves insulin sensitivity, but also body composition. It decreases sex hormones like estrogen, decreases inflammation, improves the adipokine milieu with all that stuff we were talking about, right? The leptin and inflammatory markers. Improves immune surveillance, which is our bottom line, by the way. All of cancer is a failure of your immune system at the end of the day. And it improves DNA repair. So once people hear me wax on about all the health and longevity benefits of exercise, the inevitable next question is, how much exercise do I have to do to get these benefits? Well, I'll tell you what, you just got to stand up. Like, look at the beginning of this curve. You go getting exponential gains just by getting off the couch. Just start moving, people. But if you really want to be optimizing your health, 150 minutes, you're going to see that the curve starts to flatten out, but it really doesn't. It's still elevating. And so I always get an A+. I definitely hit 300 minutes a week. But if you look on the other side of that, it's still going up. It's not nearly as steep. So the benefits are fewer per the hour plus you put in beyond 5 hours a week. But if you want to Forrest Gump it and just run and keep running, it's going to keep helping. All right. Check this out. A study looked at exercise and breast cancer recurrence. There were 1,340 stages 1 through 3, all high risk because they all went through chemotherapy. Activity before, during, and after treatment was all collected. And they also categorized incrementally the people as couch potatoes, low, moderate, or high active based on the minutes I just broke down. So now, relative to the person who didn't work out before cancer, doesn't work out now, at 2-year follow-up, the one who didn't work out but now started to had 46% less breast cancer recurrence than the couch potato. If you used to work out and for some reason you stopped, you should start again because, yeah, all of those dividends you put in, they gave you 6% benefit. It's not that much. However, if you worked out before and you work out now, I love you because we're like simpatico. That's what I would have done. 55% drop in breast cancer recurrence. All right, what about all-cause mortality? Similar pattern. 43%, 9%, 68%. What about all that time commitment? Watch this. This shocked me. All-cause mortality? With respect to exercise duration, it's really exciting to me to see that all activity levels are consistently associated with significant survival advantages, showing 58 to 69% less death overall relative to completely inactive people. All right, so next up, the gut and breast microbiomes. Did you know that the human intestine harbors 39 trillion microbes, bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, and that the human body averages 32 trillion cells? So that there's literally more of them in you than there is you in you? Ponder that one. And this is a pretty fragile ecosystem. It's very bi-directional, right? Mind, body, gut connections abound, and we're just starting to really uncover the richness of it. But the microbiome can and should be manipulated by you for your good. With respect to breast cancer, the microbiome can alter estrogen metabolism, inflammation, immunity, metabolic health, and what? Therapy resistance? Immune checkpoint inhibitors, okay? These are drugs that we give to certain types of cancer. In breast cancer, it's all the triple negatives. They have no receptors for estrogen, progesterone, or this growth factor called HER2, triple negative. And when they get their chemo with an ICI called Keytruda, 65% of the time I go to operate and I'm like, what cancer? It's literally gone. It's called a PCR, path complete response. The treatment annihilated the cancer. But 65%, what happened to the other 35%? Believe it or not, researchers just determined recently that a single gut bacterium seems to be responsible for the success of ICIs. You have it in your gut, you win. You don't, you lose. What? What's its name? Well, obviously, it's Akkermansia muciniphila. So if you're on an ICI, you should up your Akkermansia, and this paper shows you 24 ways to do that. Spoiler alert, it took one company to be like, oh, I'm going to make it as a probiotic. And so they do. But guess what else ups it? Pomegranates, cranberries, Concord grapes, chili peppers, and Chinese black vinegar all bump up your Akkermansia. Notice they are all plants. Red and processed meat and low fiber, in fact, all destroy this bacteria. Maybe there should be a study going at, okay, the 35% non-responders, let's do a deep dietary analysis versus the 65%. Another part of the breast cancer gut connection involves the estrobolome. Okay, that refers to that part of your microbiome involved in estrogen metabolism. Circulating estrogens are conjugated in the liver. They're packaged for excretion via urine, bile, and feces. Conjugated. But if you have dysbiosis, right, your gut's all messed up, and you have too many of the bacteria that have this beta-glucuronidase activity, these critters deconjugate the packaged estrogen, allowing it to get reabsorbed via the enterohepatic circulation back into the body like bad karma. So, the composition of the estrobolome can be shaped negatively by factors such as antibiotics, bad, alcohol, bad, and diet. We've known for decades, this is a 1980 paper, decades, that a Western diet, high fat, high animal protein, significantly increases, see the underline, beta-glucuronidase activity, and therefore the bad karma. On the other hand, diets high in fiber, fermented foods like sauerkraut and sourdough, and polyphenols from plant-forward diets. There's that guy again. What? Neil Barnard? Reduce estrogen recirculation and foster gut microbiome diversity, as does exercise. All right, so besides a bad diet and being sedentary, what else messes with your microbiome? Stress. Biological, environmental, psychological stress affects the physiology of the entire body and significantly impacts the gut in an unpleasant way. You bloom all of these pathogenic bacteria that promote dysbiosis and gut barrier permeability, aka leaky gut. Stress is ubiquitous, but we need to manage it. And one of the best stress relievers is a good night's rest. But it turns out good sleep requires good bacteria. This study showed that the microbiome diversity led to better sleep efficiency and longer sleep time. This human study showed that even just one night of sleeping only 4 hours led to a 28% drop in natural killer cells. They're going to come back, make a debut at the end of this talk. They naturally kill cancer. They're the biggest part of your immune system that kills cancer. And there's a drop in them from bad sleep and a bump in inflammatory cytokines. So as a result, sleep deprivation may make you more vulnerable to illness. A healthy gut equals better sleep, equals better immune function, equals less disease and cancer. The single most important thing you can do to foster gut diversity is fiber. I heard it. All right, so fiber is about so much more than taking Metamucil to keep you regular, which my mom did on the regular my entire life, and it didn't work. I don't even know what she was doing. But it is the favorite prebiotic of your gut critters. They munch it down and release these short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, acetate, and propionate, which go into the body and do all these incredible anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer things, including kill cancer cells? Yeah, maybe. In this 2024 study, butyrate levels, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so old, I can't read that. The levels of short-chain, somebody blow that up. The levels of short-chain fatty acids were lower in the poop from breast cancer patients as compared to controls. And that's a shame because butyrate suppressed cancer's ability to survive and metastasize. But you didn't have any. So fiber creates short-chain fatty acids, which leads to this butyrate, which is miraculous. So it's a lot, it has more to do with life than bowel movements, except it also has to do with bowel movements. A study correlated precancerous changes in the breast with the frequency of bowel movements in nearly 1,500 women. Those who pooped less than twice a week versus those who pooped 1 or more times a day literally had 4.5 times more atypia or precancerous changes found in breast biopsies than the super poopers. Why? Well, when bile acids have a long, slow transit time due to constipation and a lack of insoluble fiber creating bulk in transit, they can be reabsorbed back into the body, and they build up what? In the breast? Yeah, apparently, look at this. Researchers radioactively labeled bile acids that women swallowed 9 days before they had their breast cysts aspirated. And lo and behold, the cysts had the labeled bile acids, proving that they came from the gut. Does that really matter? Yes, it does, because bile acids, read this, influence the growth of breast cancer cells. Thus, again, explaining the superpowers of the super poopers. All right, so now we've got estrogen, IGF-1, angiogenesis, insulin resistance, and microbiome alterations in the gut and breast, relentlessly talk-crossing inside of you, cross-talking. And now all of a sudden your body has no choice but to just turn on those bathtub jets, people. Our cells start tumbling around in this carcinogenic washing machine, and whichever organ's free radicals injured them. Wait. Why is it moving on its own? Stop it. And so it's this vicious feedback loop, right? Whereby all these pro-inflammatory cytokines are getting spewed out by neutrophils and macrophages, which then lead to free radicals, which damage the mitochondria, which spit out the more cytokines and the reactive. Oh my gosh, your body craves balance. We need a hero to squelch this oxidative stress, because whichever organ's free radicals injure the most frequently and severely becomes the diseases you'll get. If it's your blood vessels, hello, heart disease. If it's your muscles, fibromyalgia. Intestines, irritable bowel, leaky gut. Your brain, I forgot. Dementia, Alzheimer's. If there's excessive free radical damage in your breast tissue, well, so who is our savior? Antioxidants battle the oxidants, aka the free radicals. Well, where are they all coming from? Really, only one source on Earth. Plants, on average, carry 64 times the antioxidant power of meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Let that sink in. So that means gram per gram. In order to ingest the antioxidant content in 1 cup of blueberries for 57 calories, you would have to ingest how many slices of Domino's cheese pizza? 27.5 slices of vomit-inducing calories and fat. So the next time someone says, well, dairy has antioxidants, you can confidently say, yes, it does. Ish. So here's a breakdown of the major drivers of inflammation, which cause the oxidative stress, which cause the inflammation, and hence the bidirectional arrow at the top of the slide. Guess what? You control all of it. And guess what else? I just got the 5 minutes left sign, so I'm going to just rattle through this without, just believe me, the mechanisms are there. You can read them really fast. A poor diet, which you know what that would look like. Chronic stress, leading to cortisol dysregulation. Poor sleep, circadian rhythm disruption. Obesity, we talked ad nauseum. Smoking, alcohol, gut barrier damage, lipopolysaccharide translocation causes all sorts of inflammation, and these key inflammatory mediators that just set up the landscape for badness. Environmental toxicities, pollutants, plastics, metals, the phthalates in your makeup, the formaldehyde flying off your couch, the benzenes from your gas stove. It goes on, it's ubiquitous. The response to infections, both acute and chronic, and now instead of calming the bathwater, a tsunami starts to brew, culminating in mitochondrial dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, autoimmune diseases, and immune system dysfunction spills out all over your body. Worst of all, the number one defense, the masterminds of all cancer cell destruction, the natural killer cells start to drown and disappear. So now we have our shields down, our protection is gone. And when we get to that point, as my boys tell me all the time, for reasons I'm not sure why, you're cooked. But before you were cooked, your cells looked like this. You had 2 perfectly functional genes working in harmony. A proto-oncogene, normal gene in your body that lightly presses on the gas as it regulates healthy cell growth, division, and survival. The tumor suppressors, like P53 and BRCA, they're pivotal to DNA repair, cell cycle arrest, apoptosis, cancer cell death, because they recognize, hey, proto-oncogene, hello, you made a little mistake. I'm going to tap on the brake and I'm going to get out of my car and I'm just going to fix things for you or throw you out. So what happens when these suppressors get suppressed? There's no brake. And now cells can grow without control or order, and they make mistakes and they keep growing and they grow straight into a cancerous mass. Of course, you can inherit mutations, but suppressor genes are affected by diet and lifestyle also, not by changing their DNA sequence directly like a BRCA mutation, but through epigenetic alterations through your diet and lifestyle choices that impair their function. For example, high alcohol consumption, acetaldehyde, mutates these suppressor genes. Obesity and visceral fat, the inflammation, suppresses the suppressors, as does a poor diet, high in fat, processed meat, and ultra-processed foods, a sedentary lifestyle, sleep deprivation. Oh, gosh, I'm like just saying it all over again, and read one of the other lists. See how it's also synergistic, though, and how you can attack these different prongs and create just total body wellness. Environmental toxins, high stress. Let me give you an example. Zeranol. It's the most potent growth hormone found in human food. It's injected into 94% of all cattle, so they grow fat fast. And it literally is estrogen, boasting 100,000 times the estrogen influence in your body of BPA, of the bisphenol A in plastics. So this is why I always kind of smirk when someone's like eating, like that was not a bite, like eating In-N-Out burger, and not, oh no, I'm not drinking out of that water bottle. That might have been in the sun. I'm like, okay, 100,000 times. You just have never met Zeranol, my friend. Let me introduce it to you. So here's the thing. In the lab, Zeranol turns human breast cancer cells, human benign breast cells into cancer in 21 days. And it causes existing cancer cells to proliferate. What it does, Zeranol, it downregulates P53, which is your most important tumor suppressor. Maybe Zeranol is the reason why in the Nurses' Health Study, when 39,000 premenopausal women were followed for 7 years, there was a 34% increase in breast cancer in those who ate the most Zeranol in their high school years. What can unshackle the suppressors so they can do their job again? Regular exercise, adequate sleep, calorie restriction and fasting, stress reduction, and high antioxidant diet like berries. This 2020 paper identified 8,900 breast cancer patients. And for every 2 servings a week of blueberries, there was a 25% decrease in breast cancer specific mortality. From berries, what's the magic? Elagitannins and ellagic acid get transformed where? In a healthy gut microbiome by microflora into urolithins, which activate P53. You unshackle the suppressed suppressor. So it can even start to turn off oncogenes, which is when a proto-oncogene, the healthy cell, becomes mutated, amplified, and overactive. It's just pedal to the metal, divide. Gain of function mutations are always on. They drive uncontrolled proliferation straight into a cancerous wall. And you know what mighty little thing can downregulate an oncogene like HER2? A flaxseed. A seed. A study looked at 3 factors in the core biopsies of breast cancer patients, one of them being an oncogene. And half of them simply ate, get this, 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds a day for 5 weeks. So we had their core biopsy, now they get their surgery, and what happened to the oncogene? Well, the division rate went down, the apoptosis went up, the oncogene expression dropped by 71%. So now that you understand all the bubbles and lavender salts and plush towels, cancer needs to survive and thrive in its microenvironment, which is your body. Let's get empowered by the fact that you choose. For better or worse, every time you eat or don't eat, drink or don't drink, move or don't move, think or don't think, something, you change the water. Every choice you make moves you closer to cancer or farther away. And when things get really, really bad, and you or a friend, remember, we all have the power to just drain the tub, and then you can fill it back up with cancer-kicking power. With a whole food plant-based diet, a lack of meat and animal proteins and fats, you minimize the saturated fats and ultra-processed foods, get to an ideal body weight, move your body, cut back or out alcohol, never smoke, detox your home, be smart about hormone taking, prioritize your sleep, manage your stress, stay socially connected, fast for longevity, and bonus points always abound for joy. Give back, smile, laugh, and join me for the letsbeatbreastcancer.org campaign this October. Thank you.
All right, we have time for probably one question for Dr. Funk. So you gave us a lot of information today, but what would you say, how do you start this conversation with your patients? Is there one thing you kind of go after first, or just how does it begin?
It begins by my giving them a list of things. Basically, I can look at them and look at their intake form and see where we have room to improve. I've already calculated their body mass index. I've already looked at their family history, and we've already kind of figured out where they have their alcohol consumption on there, a number of things. So I already know where we might have room to improve. And if I get this completely healthy, zened out, vegan from birth kind of person in front of me, stress always gets them.